Hi, folks. Seeing some familiar faces. Sharif is here too. Hi, Sid. All right. We're going to add good evening, Felix. Hi, Sue. All right, we're going to wait a few minutes just so that people get a little notification and join in. And we are looking forward to an on-time departure at 8 p.m. Grab yourselves a nice cool drink or a warm drink or a soup and make yourself comfortable. Hi, Smriti. Hi, Ian. All right. We'll give it a few more minutes. We've got exactly 3 minutes. I hope everyone's having a nice weekend. It's always strange doing these Insta Live introductions by yourself. You feel like you're just talking to yourself and looking at yourself. But I guess it's something that one gets used to. Anyway, I think we are ready to have our very, very venerable guest, who is Sharif. I think you're going to have to send me another request to join in. Oh, there we go. I've got you. There we go. Sharif, there we are.
Hi.
Let's just do a quick sound check. Can you hear me? And
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you.
Are you sure?
Yes. Do you have
Cool.
a warm cup or bowl of soup to keep you
Listen,
warm?
I finished that, but now it's not an ad, so I have to blur this. No, so I've just started on some white chocolate liqueur.
Oh, right. Well, I have some coffee liqueur over here.
Yeah.
So cheers. Yeah. That's
I've got one of those.
that's the right size.
Well, I'm not into size really, Karan.
So, Sharif, guys, let's do a quick introduction. I am really excited to have Sharif here. I absolutely love this guy. He has a great perspective and a great depth of knowledge, not just about music, but also about, what's happening in this world. And I think one of the themes, obviously, that we're focusing on today is, about music and about the LGBTQ plus community. And Sharif is an accomplished journalist and has had a very successful career in the publishing and PR industry. And, he's made it a point to, at some point, leave all of that behind and follow his dreams of becoming an author and a musician. So if you have time, do check out his book, and you can get it on Amazon, Straight to Normal, My Life as a Gay Man. And he's also the festival director of the Rainbow Lit Fest. Is there a Rainbow Lit Fest happening this year?
Nothing physical. That looks impossible, because
All right.
India's, you know how there's a country full of pricks, but we couldn't plan the jabs properly.
Well, I hope you do something online. I think that'll be
Yeah,
really
we will, for sure. Yeah.
And also, there's your band, which is Friends of Linger, right? And your group consists of many of the people that I love playing with as well. Avo and Steve and Smithy and Veer. And one thing that's really wonderful about Sharif is that, and he lives in New Delhi, is that if you're a part of the music scene there, you will have been called to a gig at some point organized by Sharif. And he has a wonderful way of bringing lots of people together who normally wouldn't meet. So I think that's really sweet and nice. Yeah. So I think that's really where you are and what you do. Today is really in an effort to celebrate Pride Month, and I think this is really special for us at the Academy. We've created this wonderful playlist for us, which spans geography and time. And it's actually 3 playlists in one if we were to kind of categorize it, pretty much. But our idea today is to talk a little bit about the music and what it means. We're not specifically only talking about LGBT artists and about their challenges in the industry, which I think if we have time, we'd love to touch upon. But it would be really nice to talk about some of this. I wish on Instagram Live I could play some of this music, but because of copyright and all the other stuff, you'll just have to check this out right after the chat. The links to the playlist will be up, and I hope you all check them out and have a wonderful Sunday listening to all this beautiful music. But my point is, let's go into the idea of a playlist. Now, before Spotify and Apple Music and all of this other stuff, you had playlists. The community was very proud of its playlist, right? You were telling me about this. Could you elaborate a little bit about that? Yeah.
Yeah. So, actually the strange thing is, I don't think there is a gay playlist or a pride one, to start with. I mean, I think it's just music and what connects with us, which artist connects with us. I think that's the most important part of what happens. But I think there was sort of a period where rock and disco were pretty much part of the gay dance party scene, even in the 70s. I'm really talking more about for now for India, but I also gathered that even in places like London, SFO, and the rest of it, there was always music that sort of connected. There were Queen tracks. I mean, I recall mixing at a gay party in the 90s sometime, late 90s, Dragon Attack from the album The Game, which is a hardcore rock piece, of music. And it had to do with what that song was about, but it had a lot to do with Freddie Mercury. And so, I think the 60s, 70s, etc., there wasn't a list. There was more about a meaning and a connection, to do with the artist. I think the lists as such started coming out later in the late 70s, 80s, 90s. I think when the US started realizing there's a market out there.
Right.
And I think it was even later that it got even more organized. When they realized economically there is what is called the DINK, the double income, no kids group. And that time some people's relationships somehow managed to thrive, or in whichever form it was. So they started sort of putting labels to music,
Right.
And irrespective of whether the artist is queer, irrespective of what the artist might stand for generally, that wasn't the criteria, that wasn't. So it is, which is why you'll suddenly find a playlist full of disco music, full of remixed material, more and more in what is called gay music, and even when I not got onto the gay scene, when I'd come out and I was going to some of the discos in Delhi, there's a fantastic and gorgeous looking DJ who's in Goa now, Iggy. And I had I had a conversation with him, and I said, "Oh my God, this is a gay track." And he looked at me and he said, "What do you mean by a gay track?" So I was talking about "I Will Survive," I think, and one other piece that was played. So I said, "No, but this is like what we call gay music." So he said, "Sharif, there's nothing like gay music because there's nothing like straight music." And it's what it means to you, So he's sort of put everything into context in that short conversation, but he still looked very good.
Well, we should find out if Iggy's still around. I think he is.
Oh, he's very much. He tours with his whole truck and equipment.
Oh, wow.
But he hasn't come to Delhi.
That's the way to do it. Well, that's interesting because I think it was only in the 80s. I read this. I was reading about how New Orleans in the late 1890s and the early 1920s, that period, about 30 years, New Orleans had legalized things like prostitution and whatnot. And jazz came about, blues, the early sort of really, these hot clubs and whatnot. And there was a lot of self-expression. There was a lot of places where people could create music. I mean, there was I was reading about Ma Rainey, who is this blues singer. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
heard of her.
Yeah.
But you know, she actually got she wrote about her lesbian experiences and actually got them recorded. And there's some incredible stuff. I found a little poem for you about it, which I'll share in a minute. I actually have to show this to you. And it says, where is it? Oh God, where is it? It's here somewhere. Oh yeah, where she went, I don't know. I mean to follow everywhere she goes. Folks say I'm crooked. I don't know where she took it.
Yeah.
I want the whole world to know. I went out last night with a crowd of my friends. It must have been women, because I don't like men. Wear my clothes just like a fan and talk to the gals just like any old man. And do you know when this was recorded? 1925. 2028. Prove It on Me Blues. And that's incredible that these themes and this expression was recorded all the way back then.
Yeah, but you know, actually, there's a lot of history we need to dig into, because when you're talking about a song, there was a book 1927 in India called a collection of writings called Chocolate.
What's it called?
Chocolate, and it got translated by Ruth Vanita, who's a historian, and a lesbian lady, now lives in the U.S. She translated that book in English, you know, and so there's a lot of material.
Can you talk a little bit about that? That sounds really.
Yes, so it's a collection of stories which are sort of all same sex, you know, things like that, and a lot of us didn't know it existed until it was translated into English, you know, and obviously because English sort of influences, you know, who's gay and who isn't, and what are the terms we use. Yeah, so that's out there. But again, you know, talking about like on that list, there are a few artists missed. Like you were just talking about the blues artist, Joan Armatrading should have been on this list. I actually, because I crossed 100 and I didn't, so I said, okay,
100, yeah.
Yeah,
we'll do it on the next one.
Yeah, we'll create the smaller list. But Joan Armatrading is a fantastic soul to blues singer, a Black American, and I was introduced to her by a journalist, Paranjoy Guha Thakurta, and he said, Sharif, you must listen to this. And then he said, did you like it? So I said, yeah. He said, she's lesbian. So I said, oh. I said, I had no idea. And so there's the great love tracks on that, you know, Down to Zeros is like a crashing song.
Oh, I've got to hear this. We got to check this out. Maybe on the next playlist.
Yeah. You know, so there's a lot of stuff out there. You know?
But if you look at this playlist, and I hope and within the next 45 minutes, this playlist will be out, published, if you will. So you're going to see, I mean, those who are listening, you're going to see a lot of the variety in this. And I thought we'd talk a little bit about some of these. So I thought we'd pick 4 tunes and maybe go into them. Just off the top of my head, but you can choose. You have some wonderful Asha Bhosle, you have Lata Mangeshkar, you have Bob Dylan, Aretha Franklin, you have the Drifters, I mean, obviously Dire Straits and Queen. So why don't we pick a few and then explore what those themes were and where that went and what that means and what they meant.
Yeah, so, you know, actually the thing about the movement across the world, and I'm really looking at 60s onwards, sort of, you know, mid-60s onwards. So if you just look at Martin Luther King and civil rights, the beneficiaries have been white people as well. You know, not that they want to acknowledge it openly, you know, not until Black Lives Matters happened. So similarly, when there was civil rights movement and there were songs like Times They Are Changing from Dylan, it appealed also to the queer community. It was essentially telling the older generation that, damn it, you either hold our hand and walk across the street, or otherwise just move out of the way. Mm-hmm. So, you know, so that song sort of seeped into a lot of you know, closed gay groups. And similarly, even a Diamonds and Rust, which was really one of Joan Baez's best tracks ever. I mean, in terms of her writing and everything, was her dedication to Dylan, but it was also telling Dylan that, damn it, I did everything. You're charming, you're beautiful, etc. You're fantastic, but love me, you
Amazing.
know. And it was sort of what a lot of us go through in you know, wanting love to be complete. So that song sort of even, you know, became part of the community as that we started listening to it at that time. And in fact, a young, gorgeous queer boy who sings with the other band that I'm part of, Sumit Sadavarti, who's from Pune, and he was on the Asia's Got Talent, the only Indian who made it there. Uh, One of his favorite tracks is Diamonds and Rust because it carried that sort of meaning to the kind of breakups he's had. You know, so there is, you know, there is a lot of music of that sort. You know, as much as Churaliya or Hare Rama Hare Krishna Dhammaro Dham, you know, because they were all breaking norms in a certain way, which is why a Sunita Rao and Pari Hume was again this individual woman with gorgeous jewelry, you know, you know, dancing away, men running around her. I mean, that's the imagery that, you know, sort of gay men would love, you know. And I mean, so we've had these kind of connections from time to time that sort of resonate with our lives.
Incredible.
And, you know, which is why we've not necessarily only looked at a gay artist and his, her, or their song.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And you know, like, okay, yes, you know, someone might come out as bisexual or whatever later, but there's so much of music out there which connect with women and their stories, which may connect with us, hopelessness, fighting, bravery, being proud. I mean, there's just so many themes.
So explore that idea. Let's go into some of the stuff that's you know, some of the songs that really had important messages that were from Bollywood. I think that's something that maybe we could start there a little more. I mean, you talked about Damaru Dam, but what kind of were these immediately sort of recognized as songs that had this kind of feel, or did it take years and years for this kind of message to, you know, like a Bob Dylan song has lyrics which are completely evident, right? It's a struggle song, it's a protest song, it's anti-war or something. You can kind of extrapolate that. But what about something like Damaru Dam?
See, I think Dhammaru Dham had a lot to do with Flower Power that time. And Flower Power was part of sort of a protest. I mean, it was about liberty. It was about freedom. It was about drugs. It was about having fun. It was, you know, it was moving into all kinds of spaces, you know, that you could find any spot in any place and just have, you know, a great time, you know. And so that song connects with, you know, and it was, I mean, just hear the music. It was so unusual for a Hindi track, you know, to have that, you know, bit of music, you know, and it talks about love as well, that portion which Usha Uttup does, you know, when she was Usha Iyer, you know, which most people, you know, I think in the 80s and 90s when the song was sort of put on new series and records, it didn't have the full track. But there is a portion with Usha Uttup in it, you know, where she talks about love in that piece, you know, and so that's why that. Yeah, there was a bit of a call trying to come in.
Oh, that was you.
So,
okay, I was wondering. I thought something happened at my end. Okay, let me put my headphones back in. 1 second. There we go. All right, we're back.
Yeah.
Oh, is that
So,
a different drink?
No, it's the same. It's the white chocolate liqueur.
Oh, the white chocolate liqueur. That sounds delicious. Well, cheers to everybody
Yeah.
out there on this wonderful Saturday evening. We're blessed with not having any cyclones this weekend or torrential downpours, so the internet is in full swing. Let's also talk a little bit about how certain songs like stuff that comes out of Bollywood in the last maybe 10 years has been relevant outside of the country, and people have been able to sort of associate it with that, if you can.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll tell you that there was a time, this was at Pegs and Pines in Delhi, and one of the biggest tracks, I mean, that time the DJ used to do a great mix. It wasn't like from the fourth song onwards, you'll only hear Bollywood, you know?
Hmm.
And the DJs used to innovate those days. They knew rhythms, they knew beats, and they didn't go by these machine-made, computer-generalized BPMs. So you can just have, 20 Bollywood remix tracks or dance tracks or item songs. Uh, that was just, I personally find that a little treacherous, actually. But Choli Ke Piche became this big track, and just now there was, I saw Maya in the group. Maya is a drag artist,
Oh, super.
and so she and she's I think she's done her version of it at some point,
Oh, that's
and
incredible. Is it on
and but
Spotify? Is
I
it?
have
I mean, can we?
no, her version, she must have performed it, a video
Okay.
somewhere. I have to locate it. Yeah.
All right.
So
You should.
it's a song which has a certain amount of grandeur, fun, and there's this whole thing about behind the the dupatta and the dance sequence, the way the breasts are used and the movement and the oomph, etc. These are all things which uh, appeals to a lot of queer people,
Right.
and it has that, again, it's non-conformity, because we're such a society where anything that has too much of oomph, and if it's a woman, etc., there's already you kind of stereotype them as flirts, as lustful individuals, as all the terms that get generally used. So anything that challenges those norms sort of connect with us,
Right.
because we don't fall in those stereotypes, we don't fall into those binaries. But what was interesting, I saw during my many travels to Thailand, which is almost like a home to me, uh, was that I walked into a disc with two friends from the Philippines who were both singers, and they used to perform at bars out there. And so we walked to this place, and then and about, it was 11:30 at night, or just about. And 11:30, the drag artists, take center stage, and I hear Dolare playing,
Wow.
and I'm like, okay, I was like, where am I? But it is such a big song in Thailand, and as much as Choli Ke Piche, and Chikni Chameli,
Right.
all these songs are big, even in Thailand. And and we used to say, we'll see all the queens getting onto the stage, everyone with their tumkas and glitter, and so
Amazing.
it's just amazing how certain music and tracks mean to us. And obviously, when you look at Rekha and you get Umrao Jan, it wasn't necessarily only the song, it was also about who Rekha is, like a diva, single woman. She stood up to who, and she's been treated really badly by X person. We know who that person is, and so so when it was Dil Cheez Hai Aapko Meri Jaan Lijiye, it was like this desperation for love. I mean, like, you're so broken, and it again, the costumes, the setting, the
Right.
jewelry, you know well, again, very, very um, endearing for the community. And that's the reason why also, when you go back to the early 70s, Meena Kumari, there's a connection in the community, you know because like we would joke, may her soul rest in peace. It definitely has, I'm sure. But we would say Meena Kuvari. And there's a well-known gay couple, Sridhar Rangayan, who runs the Kashish Film Festival and makes films as well, Evening Shadows, and his partner Saga. So when Sridhar was trying to seek Sagar out, he used to be called Pakiza because he was always waiting at a train station.
Okay.
So, you know, there are these connections,
Cute.
you know.
That's really, yeah.
And then there's so many other songs, like Nandan is just mentioning Pyar Kiya To Darna Kya. You know, it's like us, you know, like I mean, the pop version is hashtag love is love
Right.
nowadays, you know, and but
But
it is Pyar
but do you
Kiya
think
To Darna Kya, you know, क्यों डरना है? Why do you have to get scared? What is this
what's
fear that we have to live with?
well, what's really interesting is that, um, and there is a little difference here between the song itself and the performer, right? I mean, for example, Rekha would not necessarily have written those lyrics, would
Oh
not
yeah,
have necessarily, right? She didn't write that music, but it was her struggle which was identified with. It was her sort of
yeah,
isolation and treatment by the sort of by a patriarchal kind of system, which made
yeah,
that reaction and made her popular. Um, but and I guess that follows through to pretty much to now, right? I mean, where I
yeah,
guess the identity of someone is still sort of separate from the music, but it really depends on if your personal life is
yeah,
is reflective of your identity. I think you can't run away from it. It does at some point, no matter what you write about in your music. You know, you could be a heavy metal, thrash metal fan, but what you do in your
yeah,
life has very much got to do with how people see that music. And I think that's really incredible that you can't always
yeah,
decouple those two things. That's what I was trying to say, right? And is
yeah.
that
You can't.
true?
I think so. I think so. There isn't. I mean, you know, I mean, I don't like to use that too much. Hashtag love is love. Love is love. I mean, the fact that when, you know, in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, that scene of Kajol on the train and, you know, and a dupatta flying, the number of people from the community who cried,
Amazing.
because it was about that moment. It was a separation. It was about that story. It had nothing to do with Karan Johar, for God's sake. It had a lot to do with that story, you know.
Right.
And so, you know, the point, the greatness of music is the greatness of food. It fuses and connects to different palates, you know, and you can't like keep putting them into those boxes. I mean, which is why we will we will uh, love our gay artists, or try and follow them, but we will also find songs that appeal to us personally. I mean, there is a track which, during a period that I didn't know I was under depression, 2007, and it's an older track. It was U2 and Pavarotti, Miss Sarajevo. But that track was all about non-conformity. It was about love. It was about peace. It was about trying to do something while war is on.
Amazing.
Trying to live, right? Yeah. And you know, and it talks. You know, there's so many lines. There's so many lines in that song that I used to. I remember this flight from uh, from Munich to Denver. It's about 8-9 hours. I don't know how many times I just wept. It just kept. It suddenly picked up on my iPod. Those days there was an iPod,
Sure.
and and it happened to me when I was back in Delhi at at traffic lights, etc. Because that song was really about challenging power, challenging, and you know, war and oppression. You don't need a physical violence display of a battle. You know, it could be that's just the battle with yourself. It could be the battle with everything else around you. You know, and so so that song to me meant a lot. It's not on this list, but it meant a lot to me. You know.
But that's incredible how one does find purpose in music. I mean, look at how powerful that those lyrics, which you may not have heard that song now for a few years, but it has
Yeah.
this deep, resonating sense of purpose, and I mean, it hits you obviously, right?
Well, it does. It does.
What's really fascinating to me is that, you know, for music that we listen to, you can call it whatever, pop or thrash or this or that or independent, right?
Yeah.
A lot of this music becomes, and people resonate with their themes because they have physical places to go and enjoy this, right? I mean, if you look at the rise of venues and music spaces that have allowed jazz to sort of proliferate in India or in South Asia. It's a physical space where people come to experience and understand and listen and come there. They may not all have the same interest in that, right? But they gain a perspective. And what I find incredible is that all of these things, all of these songs that have meaning that people are that, for example, you just found, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure it wasn't easy to do that when you didn't have, I mean, I wouldn't say a club, but a place where you could do that. I mean, I remember in the US when I was there, I mean, every neighborhood, every city, at least in Boston and New York, there was a gay club. There was something that was, then they were proud of it. It was not just a night. You know, it was a place where you could go, and there was a place where you could experience music, just not just relevant to those themes. So how does that? So it's actually, my point was just an observation that it's incredible that these songs become part of the community, even when there aren't always places where one can talk about them and have dialogues about what these things mean.
See, I think, you know, at least in Delhi, there was a point we had a huge private party scene. We had a farmhouse parties. And, I mean, Pegs and Pints and places like that came up later. And again, they were one nights here and one night there. Pretty much like our lives, one night stand here and a one night stand there. You know, there wasn't a certain, you know, sense of continuity. It wasn't easy. Because you're always in these different spaces, you know, some are very heterosexual, and then you have this queer night, you know, oh my God, you know, and you release all your tension on it. But I think we all listened to music. It's a sense of relief, you know, it's playing in the background, sometimes it's in the foreground. And when I used to organize parties at home, so I used to create my own playlists, that's what it's called nowadays, but I used to, you know, mix stuff and put it together. So I used to cover different periods, times. I used to have Hindi, I used to have not much of Hindi, but we used to have also indie pop, right?
Right.
You had this, I didn't like the song very much, but Anamika's, you know, the song called Catwalk. And it was a big track at that point, purely because it was quite gutsy for a woman who was somewhat stout. And you know, and she's crawling on this catwalk, and you know, she's you know, basically what today you want to call body shaming, and now fashion designers, out of great tokenism, some of them globally, big bands and all, want to have, you know, a free size and a large size and an extra large size and cater to that, you know. But she tried to do that way back, you know, when indie pop was around,
right?
And so you had all of, you know, so I used to mix that stuff. So obviously we had ABBA. We would have Take a Chance on Me. You would have Dancing Queen. You would have Mamma Mia, you know, Gimme, Gimme, Gimme a Man for the Mid, you know, that kind of stuff. We would have Brown Girl in the Ring. Some of us actually understood what that song was about, Boney M. And because that is really a song of about to do with rights, actually. And so you could mix these kind of pieces of music, and even Wham, and obviously you know, George Michael became big, particularly when he went solo.
Right.
But Wham was quite something. With Wake Me Up Before You Go, Bad Boys, you know, and Smriti has sung Brown Girl in the Ring, she says. Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting because even before the 90s, right? I mean, I in my reading list over the week to chat with you, I've been sort of exploring a lot of really interesting writings about how the LGBT community has, you know, their role in or its role in the industry. And it seems like in the 80s with David Bowie and Prince, right, when they really came out, because they were gender ambiguous and popular, right, to a certain extent, and that paved the way for a lot of artists to come into the scene and really, you know, own their identity. And is that something? Do you share that view? And do you think that it made it possible for groups like Wham to really come back? And I'm sure there were others in the 80s who were also
Actually,
doing the same thing.
we used to suspect that that there was this band which came and went in 1982 or so.
Yeah,
Divo.
yeah, Diva, of course. Yeah,
Yeah, right. Which sort
yeah,
of came and went. They were one of those one-hit wonder type
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
bands. There
Diva.
was Thompson Twins, and people thought they were
Of
queer.
course.
And oh
Thompson
God,
Twins.
I had the hots for one of them. Yeah. And Hold Me Now. What a song.
Hold me now.
Yeah.
Right,
And then there was
right.
Nick Kershaw and folks like that. But I think, I think David Bowie did more than what Queen did.
Right.
Because even Elton John and Freddie Mercury, for the longest time, kept saying they're bisexual. They weren't owning their identity because that's what perhaps UK was,
Right.
in the 80s,
Or
or the
it was
world,
the business at that point, right? I
or
mean,
the business as well. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
it's the business risk. Yeah. So and you find, uh, you know, Freddie Mercury coming into his own when he went solo, and there was this absolutely incredible dance track, "Living on My Own."
Hmm.
What a song! What a song!
Right.
And so you I think Wham, uh, I don't think they sort of wanted to follow anyone. I really don't. I think they just went for it, and
Right.
it was easier being a duo. Perhaps at that point, I mean, there are all conflicting reports as to why they split, and why George Michael went on his own. Uh, but and there was Culture Club, which was today you would call brave. Just imagine Boy George dressed in drag,
Right, right.
come a
Culture, of
chameleon.
course, of course.
No,
Right,
so
culture
actually,
club.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think the world has regressed in a way,
sure.
like in cinema in India, uh, with the exception of OTTs. But I think the world has everything has got manufactured into certain images. There's a whole production team. But I mean, when you look at Boy George, and when you look at Culture Club, when you look at um, Thompson Twins, or Bowie, or even Elton John when he finally started coming out, and um, they just did things because that was that time. I think
Right.
they
Or
just they
even,
just
or
did.
even, or even Rob Halford of
Yeah,
Judas Priest, right?
or
I mean,
Judas Priest. Yeah,
yeah, when he came out, I mean, these were guys who were at the pinnacle of their thrash metal game. I mean, it was,
and
and
REM's lead singer, I've forgotten his name.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you're right. Stat, what's his name? Stephen.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Anyway, correct. No, but that's really interesting because I think you, today, if you have, we were talking about this the other day about Sam Smith,
Oh yeah.
right? And what his journey in the business or sort of has been, and in relation to his identity. So could you elaborate a little bit about that? Because I thought that
Yeah,
was a really interesting insight.
I think we've seen this, that there's certain artists who've come out and they put their identity right up in front, and they build their music or songs and the performances around it. They don't they faced problems in terms of followings, record sales, and things like that. So Sam Smith has faced that, and there have been other artists from time to time who have. And if you look at even in the indie scene in India, there are many. There are many. But the moment they sort of carry their identity with them, and talk about songs that relate to their life, it's not going to be easy, and it isn't, you know. And so clearly we need to understand that the commercial world, as such, of pop, etc., needs certain things to be ticked for them to invest in you. They don't invest in your plight or
Right.
your triumphs,
Right.
your bravery, or of you being pride, unless they can make money out of it. Now, Sam Smith is not packaged in the way uh, a lot of pop artists are.
Right.
And so, Troy, for example, might have better chances because he also has a very young audience who's pushing a label-less world. the kind of folks who are also following BTS, the K-pop
Right. Yeah.
band.
BTS, of course.
Yeah, and so they're coming with that generation. So there's a huge shift in a short time between Sam Smith's peak and the rise of some of these younger gay stars. But that's also happening because cinema is changing,
Right.
and some of his hits come with the movies that have been made.
What about
If you see.
what about in folk music, especially in India? Are some of these themes and some of these ideas manifested in ways which are expressed? Like I was talking about Ma Rainey, the blues singer, right? Who kind of, really made it a point to talk about her experiences and her love for women, even on those early blues records. And the fact that, the early form of Capitol Records actually published that, right? I mean, there's no way they would have put that out without knowing what was on those tracks. And that's really interesting because I'm sure there's a lot of expression in the arts, not just in music here.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't know where to explore that and where one would start to look.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think in India there are. I mean, it's just that they aren't on the pop scene. We're as followers of music, we're consumed by Bollywood, and we think we're consuming Bollywood, but it's eating us up. I mean, that's what marketing can do, and production and things like that. So, there is, for example, there's Jay Anand, the trans man, now based in Bangalore.
Okay.
So he identifies as they and him. A lot of his music is his real life stuff. And if you look at Alicia Bath, she's lesbian and she became big for a period because she did a Coke Studio track.
Okay.
But the followers didn't necessarily shift across to follow her music. And she's got amazing stuff. She sounds, she's heavily influenced by Patti Smith.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Lucinda Williams and people like that. Then, like that, there is, I think it's Kpop, it's from Calcutta, queer. And was into jazz and R&B, but, added elements of electronic sounds to their music. And then we have Smruti here, who's been waiting to release her stuff. And she's written a beautiful track many years ago, which is in Hindi. And it's amongst my favorite tracks. I would tell her to play it quite often. And
let me interrupt you for a minute. For those of you who don't know, Smruti is online somewhere. You should definitely talk to her. She's just joined us as voice faculty. She's absolutely fabulous. So, yeah, we're looking forward to hearing this. Yeah.
So, they're like that. There are just, there's more than what one, what I'm mentioning, because I'm sure there are artists out there who are not getting to see online,
right.
And I don't know them. But there's also, there was this, young queer couple, they split, and I used to follow them on Instagram, and both incredibly fabulous singers, absolutely, it's a delight. And when they were together, they used to do these harmonies, and they would sing Hindi songs, they would do their own stuff, and I just wish there was an album out.
Well, let's track them down and put them on your fantastic playlist.
Yeah, I'm going to try and but they split, so I think they removed everything that was of theirs together. So I think it was a very tough breakup. Shame. Yeah, it wasn't an easy breakup, I think. And but it's not easy, I think like Smruti would be able to tell you that when she was and Jazz faced that too. When she tried to, in her early days when she was starting to perform, she was asked to doll up. She was asked to look like a woman and perform, wear a top. And I can't even visualize Smruti like that. I just can't. I may walk past her.
No, that's so.
And so a lot of these artists do face it. It's just that today, because there is this talk of queerness, and pride has got commercialized, and things like that. There's an element of tokenism, and actually brands as such, and individuals. There are some, and I'm not talking about the ones who are genuine, but there are many who leverage pride, and they benefit much more than the artist does. So last year there was a question when Tinder came out with what they claim is an anthem. How can anyone claim an anthem? And people decide what's their anthem. I mean, unless it's the national anthem. But and there was
Wait, as in Tinder came out with an LGBT anthem.
in June
Oh,
last year.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there was a controversy around it. I think Alex has dropped off, but he was amongst the ones who raised their voice about it, because it was a heterosexual artist and leading the track. And so I think Tinder must have got many more viewers and all from the gay community, but how much did the community get is the question. So I think these are some of the things which keep happening.
Well, these are also big gaps in the awareness that I guess brands and people have about these issues, right? And that what is authentic and what is commercial. And I guess that's where a lot of this education sort of has to come in, and these dialogues. I mean, I think it's really interesting that, and I hope that we can have these dialogues more often and have these playlists or have different ways in which we can talk about themes that are important to the LGBT community, because it's about time. And I think even though we've made one giant playlist here, we've got to keep pushing this out. We've got to give a platform to this music, which you do. I mean, I think you've been creating a lot of music. You've been writing about this. You've been putting stuff out as an independent artist. What is that like? What do you feel? I mean, when you put out music, how do you feel? That's the big question. Are you excited about this? Do you get nervous? Are you worried about what people think? I mean, obviously, must be. So,
I think what people think is something. I never did it with that. I mean, I wanted to be on stage. It's as simple as that. And I had decided that before I turned 50, I want to be on stage. I want to perform live with the band. And thanks to 5/8, thanks to Adil and Adil's that time undeclared love for Smriti Malik at that point, and Robin Matthew, we got that opportunity, chance to be on stage as a band, as a setup. I think Karan, I think we lost. So I don't know whether everyone is being able to. Are they? Yeah. Okay. So I guess it hung.
Oops, we're having a little bit of a tech glitch. Can you see me?
You
see me?
You're sort of blurred. Yeah. I can.
Oops. Okay. Well, I think the rains are back, or something's affecting the internet. But as long as you guys can hear me, and more importantly, you can hear Sharif, we're okay.
Yes, I can hear you, Karan. I can hear you.
Okay, so you were talking about.
So I'm saying, so I'm saying we just wanted to be on stage, and then it became sort of addictive. And it wasn't that we were a gay setup, right? There was a gang of people getting together and having a good time. But it was that Herald High, which we had performed in 2013 December, soon after the Supreme Court recriminalized homosexuality in December 2013. That one suddenly realized the importance of a song. Otherwise I wouldn't have a song like Herald High, where we'd invoked Rabindranath Tagore, where the mind is without fear. So it was where the mind is not clear, and you're wondering why, because they look at you strangely, and condition your life. So it was about the heteronormative, and that term we didn't have there. But after that, there were other songs. There was Miss You. There was so many other things one has wanted to write about. Dignity, about the rape culture in India. Silence, which has to do with, you can guess, freedom of expression. So there've been different songs from time to time. Last year was I Am Who I Am. Stories will differ. So one has just picked things that comes to oneself, at a point. And,
well, I hope we
so
can
I'm not.
include some of the music in this playlist too. I mean, I think that's important, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I
if you
do. I
mixed
do.
and mastered it, yeah.
Like Tina Sai Balamu, she's now in London. They. Um, it's quite incredible folk singer-songwriter. Beautiful videos out there, and
What about and just a side note, I mean, there must be an equivalent amount of creativity in India, in Pakistan, in Nepal, in Bangladesh, in all these SAARC countries, in Sri Lanka. I mean, we don't get access to this. I mean, how are you familiar with things that are happening there in their fledgling industries? Or I mean, I'm sure Pakistan is pretty sort of prominent, but
yeah, I believe Pakistan. There are quite a few trance artists. There are others,
incredible.
and there's a lot of good Punjabi and Urdu music come towards, from there.
Fantastic.
Nepal does have, but I don't think it's. But I've heard so.
Okay.
And I think it also has to do with the music scene in these different, uh, even in the northeastern India, and we don't necessarily get the tracks because it could be in a local dialect or language.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
So even Thailand. I mean, it was more the Filipino artists who were doing things at one point in time, but now it's sort of increased because there are good managers also. It
Right.
is
Right.
quite
Who fight?
organized.
And who also probably fight for the artists. To have a
Yeah.
have a
There's
space and to
there's a one of the biggest managers is a company called GMM, and they manage models, musicians, actors, and queer doesn't really matter. It's pretty okay.
Right. That's
Yeah,
really great.
yeah. In fact, even Jazz performed in Bangkok and never really has always had a pretty good audience.
That's great. Well,
Yeah.
look, this was really incredible. I'm glad you took the time out. I know you've been really reticent about commitments, so we're really happy that you've taken the time to do
No,
this
I'm not
for us.
reticent about all commitments. I mean, I do have someone. Yeah, but yeah, there's just too many other things happening, so I've not been doing much around this month also. So,
well, the reason
but I
I wanted
had to
to
do this, Karan. Karan, I had to do this because it's you, and
that's
it's
very
the
sweet.
Goa Jazz Academy, and we're
No, you
talking
given
about music. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're talking about perspective. I think one of the things we want to do here at the Academy is give people a holistic understanding, not just music, but the world around them. You can't just, anyone can show you how to make music, but the reason why you make music is not something that just comes to you. And I think that a chat like this, which I hope we continue, and we write about things and we listen to music, gives us that. So I can't be more grateful for you to have
No,
done
not
this.
at
And I think
all. I'm doing it because I wanted to, Karan. So I'm grateful.
thank you.
Yeah. But I have to say one more thing, Karan. Three
Yes.
times I've drunk since the pandemic started. First was when Arjun did that night thing, the evening thing with a drink,
Oh, yes. Yes.
right? That series,
Yeah.
Piano Man.
That's great.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And then the last was when Original Knockoffs, we had a Google Meet online a few weeks ago. So I was having some liqueur, and now this time. So music.
Well, cheers. Well, let's make the most of this. So,
Yeah.
thumbs up.
Yeah. So
Oh, that was
It's
great.
only that. Yeah,
Well,
thanks so much. Yeah.
we must thank your mom for lending her your
Her phone.
phone for the evening.
Yeah.
I'm sure she feels quite deprived, but we are, from all of us at GJA, we're tremendously grateful. I wish we were in Delhi. I'd give you a big hug,
Yeah.
and thank you for this and for the playlist. You put a lot of guys. If you're out there, ladies, gentlemen, and however we associate ourselves, please listen to this. Playlist. It's incredible. It's got so much depth to it. Um, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
And happy Pride
And happy, yes, of course, happy Pride, everybody.
that
Happy
song
Pride.
before we go. Remember Paul McCartney and the Wings from the album Band on the Run. Drink
One
to
of my
Me.
favorite.
Yeah,
One of my
Drink to
favorite
Me.
albums.
Remember that last song on what I was saying? Drink to me,
Drink
drink
to
to
Me.
my health. Yeah, cause something I'm gonna die. Yeah, what
That was a great
song,
album.
Yeah, Picasso's last one. Yeah, ciao.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.